on that topic about that exhibit you had in Ireland, because this is another project that you're working on called Most Likely to Succeed, which sounds really fun. And I was actually thinking of it as sort of like the sequel to The Privilege of Escape. What was your inspiration for this project, and what is this project trying to say about success?
Well, this project, I was asked to make a project about bias in artificial intelligence. Right, yeah,
Wow,
and I
that's
was like,
awesome.
yeah, I was really excited. I was like, well, I like said to the curator, I was like, I'm not like a super tech person, and I don't know that much about AI, but I was excited to learn about it, right? And I think that God, the more I learned, the more I was like, whoa, like we need to be talking about
Yeah.
this stuff, right? And the thing that I really latched onto that does relate, I think, to the privilege of escape, because the privilege of escape is all about the assumptions we make, right? Um, and then the assumptions we build off of those assumptions. And so, with most likely to succeed, again, it's like dealing with the fact that a lot of people think that if it's done by a computer, then it's fair. It's like it's this like conflation of impartiality and fairness. And that's what I was really interested in, because when you think about what's fair, like for example, if you have I don't know, like your like loan applications, right? It's like there's so many different ways you can pick that apart. You can think about how like, well, first of all, what is the information they're using to predict whether or not you can pay back a loan, right? If they're looking, I mean, one of the primary ones is your income. Well, what happens that like, marginalized people generally have lower incomes, right? Which means they will have like less access to loans, whether the amount that is loaned or even getting approved at all, right? And it's like, what do you do? Because if you make it so that it doesn't take things like that into account, and it's just going off of the raw number, right? Then it's just something that, while technically impartial, is just perpetuating existing inequities, right? And so there's that, right? And then on top of it, then you like it begs the question, well, what would be fair, right? Like, is it if you try to optimize the model and the business decisions based on it, based on need, right? Where you try to give more approvals and more money to people who have been historically marginalized. It's like, first of all, it's like, because there are like things in place where you're not supposed to be asking what people's identities are, it's like hard to then help with that, right? And so then it's like, so there's that. And then on top of it, it's like, is it fair to give extra to someone even though somebody else didn't choose their social identity, didn't choose, like there's just so many things, very complicated. And then is it fair to just give everybody the same? Like, what are the things? Is it parity? Is it need? Is it efficiency? Is it about, so basically it's like this project sort of tapped into that. And so I made like a physical, or I designed a physical game that was it's like a maze game. You're trying to get balls through the maze as quickly as possible, as many as possible before time runs out, right? But the thing that assigns how much time you get is this virtual assessment that you take. So you sit down at this sort of like arcade booth looking thing that's got a webcam, and you control the assessment with your head, right? And it's got these things that kind of involve like balance and like catching balls and moving balls, but it's all like you're not using your hands. Whereas like in the real game, you're actually using your hands. So it's like, first of all, is it a real approximation of how well you're going to do? Like, for example, the analogy that we were thinking of is like with loans, if it's like measuring how much money you keep in your bank account each month, it's like, well, that was before you had a loan to pay back. So maybe you'd behave differently if you had a loan to pay back. So like, should that even be used to determine whether or not you get a loan, right? So it's like same thing. It's like this virtual thing trying to determine how good you're going to be at this physical game. And then based on that, it gives you a certain amount of time. It makes a prediction about how likely you are to succeed at the physical game. It'll say it has like 10% confidence in your ability to succeed, or 95% confidence. And then it gives more time to people who it deems are more likely to succeed. Because we decided to go with the sort of efficiency analogy, the one that is used for job applications, school applications, loan applications, right? And this idea that, but like, since the game is, if you have more time, you are obviously more likely to process more balls. it's the idea that the prediction in it of itself can be like a sort of self-fulfilling thing. It's like almost no longer a predictor. It becomes like a straight up gatekeeper that decides who succeeds and who doesn't succeed. And so thinking about like, and then we also present them with like counterfactual explanations for like what to get them thinking about like, because they don't know how the algorithm works. Like we wrote our own logic. We oh, by the way, this is a collaboration with Alexander Taylor, this project. But yeah, and so Alex and I wrote our own algorithm, and but nobody knows. We kept it like a black box, like real algorithms, right? Because banks and schools and jobs use algorithms to sort of determine who gets to move forward, right? And so that's the thing. It's like just because it's done by a computer doesn't mean that it's fair. What does it mean? Like what is fair, right? And to whom? It kind of depends, like who the decision makers are and what their goals are. Which this was for people who are like 15 to 25 years old. So that's what we were hoping to impart with them. We wanted to get them thinking about like because a lot of times when you enter into the world, like the workforce, applying to schools, when the system is already built a certain way, it takes an extra step to like step back and question it, right? And so that's something that I hope that the people who experience this do. Who knows? Maybe we'll have some like new data scientists out of this.
I absolutely love that topic of talking about AI as not being this, neutral force that I think a lot of, Silicon Valley companies try to say that like, okay, here's a software to screen job applications. We can do it super efficiently. But, you have to then get into the question of like who is writing those algorithms to weed out these particular applicants. And oftentimes you always see that, there is rampant discrimination because whoever creates that code is who, creates the framework and creates those rules.